with me in the studio, Professor Bola Akinterenwa, Director General, Nigerian Centre for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, Modele Sharafa Yusuf, veteran journalist and Arise News analyst, Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director in Office of, and Chike Ogia, former Commissioner for Information, Delta State. Well, we've had two guests today, so let's take the topics one after the other. Professor Bola Akinterenwa, let me start with you because I see your column in Thisdaylive on Sunday today. It's also on the subject of Nigeria-South Africa relations and the people-to-people rapprochement proposed by President Muhammadu Buhari. Well, let's have your thoughts on that subject already, dealt with at great length by Ambassador Akin Fayomi.
Yes, thank you. I and Ambassador Fayomi work with the foreign minister on this particular citizen diplomacy in different forms. The director in the office of the minister then also was actually played an active part. You see, what is quite interesting about the proposal by President Muhammadu Buhari talking about people to people. It is not that we've not been having people-to-people relationship. It is not in any way new, even if Ramaphosa has proposed a youth dialogue. What is actually happening is that the people-to-people relationship has never been factored into official relationship. Chambers of commerce, they've been relating with one another. But the issue is that there is no nexus, no connection between the activities of the peoples of the two countries connected to government. You can just imagine, for instance, a Wole Soyinka will travel to South Africa and they will be insisting that he as a person, as a Nobel laureate, will be compelled to stay aside or compelled to go back, even though he had been invited to South Africa to give a speech, under the pretext that he was not holding a yellow card. If, for instance, our own government had reached a sort of an entente cordial with the government of South Africa, they can then know that, look, a Wole Soyinka has the national and international personality to be given at least a sort of preferential or, treatment. You cannot expect such a person to be treated ordinarily like me. So in this case, there is the need to factor, to create a relationship between the people-to-people transactions, all right, and official diplomacy. Let me say a footnote to what Ambassador Fayomi said, that look, that Ojoma Dueke's citizen diplomacy was more or less about consular protection. I agree with him, but I think it is more than that. It is more than that because Ojoma Dueke came up with the definition of what he had called diplomacy of consequences. Diplomacy of consequence is synonymous with the principle of reciprocity. Reciprocity has two legs: reprisal, and retortion. Reciprocity in the sense that, look, if you are looking at reciprocity in the context of economics, then you can be talking about most favored, clause. You can be talking about advantages. I give you this, you give me that. But when you talk about reprisal, it simply means that you are going to use force to reciprocate, to retaliate any bad thing that is done to you. So Ojoma Dueke is saying that, look, diplomacy of consequence. If, for instance, you consider that a few Nigerians had done something wrong, and you now decide to universalize, to criminalize virtually all Nigerians. He said, no, we won't accept that. We will do exactly the same thing. If you treat us good, yes, goodness shall follow you. If you follow us with bad intention, the same bad intention will also follow you. So this is very critical. And Nigeria's relationship in the West African region, particularly, or in the immediate neighborhood, it has never been predicated on reciprocity. This is why everybody looks at Nigerians with bad eyes. I think that point should be made. But generally, I agreed with the submission of Ambassador Fayomi, essentially. But as to the question you did ask him on why, for instance, is it that Nigerians or the South Africans have not been able to understand, to appreciate what the Nigerian government and the Nigerian people have done for them. I think there is the need to add one important information beyond the lack of enlightenment information. The foreign minister of South Africa explained to Ambassador Olugbenga Ashiru when he was foreign minister. This point was made, and it was also made when General Buba Marwa was High Commissioner to South Africa, when he drew attention to the fact that there was a radio television program in South Africa, during which it was said that Nigerian government only took active part in fighting apartheid, racial segregation for economic motivations. So, and I think that in this case, when they said Nigeria related with the international wing of African National Congress and did not relate with the local wing, that was why they didn't know what we had done. So I think that we need to work on that.
I would like to bring others into the conversation. Many of these issues you have dealt with in your column today, and I would like to refer interested persons to page 68 of Thisday newspaper on Sunday, that's today, the piece by Professor Bola Akintola titled Nigeria-South Africa Ties, PMB's Call for People's Rapprochement, a Desideratum. Well, Chike, let me come to you. Nigeria, South Africa, the symbolism of the visit by the South African president and the issues raised as discussed by Ambassador Fayomi.
Well, you ceded the floor to the erudite professor of international affairs, and I think he even took us back in history, and he has done great justice to the real rudiments of that, people-to-people diplomacy. It's just about people, getting together more, being at peace with each other, and these flares we see in South Africa where people are being killed, their businesses are being looted, and all of that will be a thing of the past. It is particularly heartbreaking for me whenever I see those things because, knowing the history of the role Nigeria played in South Africa, South Africa should never lay their hands on Nigerians at all for any reason. Of course, and Nigerians that live there must be law-abiding citizens. But be that as it may, it was a good time. Like Professor Akintola rightly said, it was a binational commission. I have also worked in the presidency, and I know how these things work. The binational commissions are usually the highest levels of commissions. They are being they hold, twice in a year, one in Nigeria, one in the host country, and they are headed by the heads of states and heads of governments of the country. So that is the highest level you can get. But a lot of people feel that the timing was a little bit unfortunate at when, the president came, of course, coming at the back of the big trade conference or whatever they had in Dowen, not a couple of weeks ago, where a lot of our officials were also there. And it was at the time this whole Omicron thing was breaking, and people felt, coming with such a huge delegation to Abuja at that time, was it really the best time to come? And that basically was what to a large extent, watered down on the import and the gains of that commission. But to my mind, I think it's a very good situation that we are in, where these commissions are being revived. And just like Ambassador Omilabu said, we should, Ambassador Fayemi, we should get all the other agencies, all the other government ministries to do their bit, because you need everybody working, whether it's health, whether it's ministry, whether it's water resources, all the areas that are being sports and all of that, so that we can push in the right direction.
Well, Modele Sharafa Yusuf.
Well, as has been said around the table, xenophobia has been a perennial and recurring problem between Nigeria and South Africa. And I guess that's why President Buhari made that call for rapprochement between the two countries. Every time Nigerians talk about gratitude for all that Nigeria did during apartheid, I'm inclined to remind us that you really should stop expecting gratitude from a friend. People don't like to be reminded of how much you owe them. It may feel good to say, I did this much for you, I did this much for you. I think, as somebody said, gratitude is a duty which ought to be paid, but which we none have a right to expect. We really, maybe it's about time that we moved on from all of the things that we did, all of those sacrifices that we made from South Africa, and build relationships anew going forward. That said, as for the rivalry between the two countries, rivalry means competition for the same objective or for superiority in the same field. And if there's anything that's up for grabs here, it is for the leadership of Africa. This, as we all have said, are the biggest economies in Africa, and Nigeria has continued to be the powerhouse in political terms and in economic terms, while South Africa continues to snap at Nigeria's heels. It's my guess that this will continue to be the case for the foreseeable future. But Nigerians ought to realize that the days of look what I did for you, look what I did for you. People don't always owe you gratitude. We need to put our house in order, and when we are in other countries, act appropriately.
Well, except that Nigeria made Africa the centerpiece of its foreign policy process. And, Nigeria invested a lot in that over the years, since Tafawa Balewa to the present. I need to take Yemi Adamolekun if she has already joined us. Yemi Adamolekun, South Africa-Nigeria relations, and also if you may start off on Omicron in Nigeria and the kind of responses that we've been getting from the international community. Yemi Adamolekun, are you there? Okay, well, let's come back to Omicron. You wanted to say something? I want to move on. I need to save time.
You see why Modele cannot be correct in terms of her position on people not wanting to be told what has been done to them. The issue is that if South Africans had for once admitted officially that Nigerians have done this, have done that, I will agree with you.
Sure they have.
No, please. You see, it's not, let me tell you, what is actually happening at the level of South Africa. I thank you sincerely for referring listeners to look at the details there. You see, you can just imagine how on a radio television program, South Africa, where they will say Nigeria only took active part because it's seeking economic gains, etc. all along.
Well, Prof,
it's very insulting.
I need to move on. On that point, no, you made that point earlier. I need to move on. I need to
it's just a footnote. Okay, all right.
Yes, your point is made. Don't worry. Modele, I need you to comment on Omicron in Nigeria. And this concern by many Nigerians that they will not be able to access the United Kingdom because the United Kingdom has now placed Nigeria on the red list.
For me, the problem is not so much Nigerians' inability to access the United Kingdom. It is more the fact that Nigerians themselves, not many people, it's only a small percentage of people who would need to travel to the United Kingdom. I'm sure you know that. But the problem for me is how Nigerians, the ordinary Nigerians, keep carrying on as if there's no problem. Data obtained from the NCDC just yesterday revealed that there's been a 76% spike in the number of positive COVID-19 cases across the country. And I'm sure it's still that low because we're not testing as much as we should be doing. We are lucky, Nigerians are lucky that most people are not getting seriously ill. But, you just never know when things will go awry. I continue to be amazed, as I said, at how people are carrying on. People walk around with their masks, they gather in large numbers everywhere, they just decorate their faces with their masks. I mean, sometimes you see notices. No, you cannot enter without a mask. And the people wear the mask, and as soon as they get in, they promptly pull it down, or they just hang it on the... It's incredible. And then people from all over the world, we can sit here and say, like the professor said, that we're being discriminated against. Well, when people see that we as a country, people in Nigeria are not taking they're not even making the effort. That we're not testing as much, we're not observing the COVID-19 protocols. People look at you funny when you wear a mask, or they make snide remarks. It's Prof is laughing, but it is.
Yeah, you are correct.
But it is the truth. So, quite frankly, we ourselves, we need to increase community testing. We need to ramp up vaccination. It's been 2 years, and this thing continues to mutate, and it continues to take over our lives. People are missing milestone events because of it, because we can't travel, and then. I take this. You know how I feel about COVID and how people just carry on. So I'm going to get emotional. So I think you just ask the next person.
It looks like Yemi Adamolekun has now joined us. Yemi Adamolekun, 2 issues. Maybe you start with Omicron in Nigeria and the responses by the international community. The latest being Nigeria now being put on the red list by the United Kingdom. And then, of course, the other issue that we discussed, Nigeria-South Africa relations and the significance of the state visit by the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, in the course of the week.
Thank you very much. So we'll start with Omicron, as you said. And I think the main thing really is what Ms. Modele has said. And that is the fact that beyond the fact that it's not as infectious. I mean, we don't have as many hospitalizations based on Omicron, but it's kind of hard to blame people that we're going about Nigerians who are going about their business, not taking it seriously, when in the grand scheme of the issues of their lives, it's really nothing. And that's really the truth. And so for whatever reason, as the professor was saying, why we have the herd immunity that we've enjoyed, the reality of people's day-to-day existence is because it's not, in a sense, a real and present danger. People are reacting to it the way they do, and we shouldn't really be surprised. But I think the larger issue, as others have also discussed, is the knee-jerk reaction the world is having to this different variants. A variant that's mutating, that we don't know what the end game is, but we're blocking people just because they traveled from a country that has it. But Belgium has also had it, and other countries in Europe has had it. And so if one looks down for the next 1 year, if all the reactions we have is just to stop travel, start travel, COVID test before you leave where you're going, COVID test when you arrive where you're going, and we're spending a lot more energy and resources in that. And now we're saying that people need to take a booster shot because you just need to be sure that the vaccine you've taken is really working. Where does it end? And I haven't heard conversations as much about that. Like, if we project 1 year into the future, where does all this end? What are we looking at? Is it booster shot every 6 months and ad infinitum? What does that look like? Is it the studies of the vaccine or the virus and how it's mutating and how people are responding to it? Unfortunately, South Africa, that made it public was penalized for it because now it's being tagged. And there was a newspaper article circulating, a German newspaper, that had a headline that basically said the variant from Africa. And that was simply because South Africa sequenced what was already existing in Belgium. So I think those kind of conversations really need to happen. And unfortunately, we were talking about South Africa and Nigeria, the two quote-unquote giant economies, giant countries in Africa, need to take the lead in leading these conversations, not just in talking about it, but also in how the countries are being led and the countries are being governed to be able to have a seat at the table. On England and Nigeria, I think it was at some point during the lockdowns, they did the same thing to Kenya, and Kenya reciprocated this exactly the same way. They put the UK on their own red list, and they had to sit down and have a conversation. Because I think until African countries also begin to use their power to, I mean, we did it for the UAE, or I think the UAE did it for us, I forget. But those kind of conversations really need to start happening so that sovereign countries can sit at a table in the interest of the globe, but also in the interest of their own economy, so that they're not pushed around based on, I don't know, based on perceptions, I guess, or discrimination. I'm not saying perception, discriminatory practices.
Well, Chike Ogea, let me come to you on Omicron in Nigeria.
Yeah, you know, the funny thing for me about Omicron is that not much is really known about the virus. And definitely we are not following the science in this, you know, very hasty reaction by all these countries that seem to be closing their borders and making it look so, you know, racist or whatever. But the truth is, as far as I'm concerned, leadership is not a popularity contest, and every leader, you know, has a primary responsibility of protecting its people. And the good thing is anybody that is protecting itself is also protecting you, because by asking me not to come, it means I'm not going to come and catch what you have there anyway, because like we rightly said, these things are already there. But I wish the world would spend more time getting to know more about this virus. And like the professor said, you know, doing all they need to do. I'm not a science student, you know, sequencing and all what they need to do. Because there's a school of thought somewhere I read that actually believes that Omicron might even be good for the world, that because it is a less virulent variant of Delta, which is what has ravaged us, which is what we have lost so many close people to. These are not people we read on the street. These are family members. You know how many family members I've lost since COVID came in last year? And good friends, you know. So I'm hearing that might even be a step down. But meanwhile, there's this hysteria, wild as it is, without much science going into the matter. And if you look, there's a quotation the learned Professor Omilabu ended up with, and he said, once we have variants of a virus, it makes nonsense of those that are fully vaccinated. And that is one of the things we should look out for. Because if it's Omicron today, we don't know what it might be tomorrow. So I think the world should leave all of that. Like, was it Modele or Prof that said it's just a few percentage of Nigerians that go to London? So because I heard the airport was a bedlam earlier on yesterday, or was it today? People are trying to beat the 6 o'clock deadline and all get into London so they don't pay £2,000 and all of that they have talked about. Whatever it is, you know, it's neither here nor there for me. I just think that the important thing at this juncture is that we should follow the science, get to the root of this virus, and deal with it.
Well, Professor Akintenwa, Omicron in Nigeria, and the ban on Nigeria by Canada, Indonesia, and now the United Kingdom.
The question you asked earlier on that you posed to our guests was, how should the world respond to Omicron? Should it be looked at from the perspective of science or politics? And I so much like the question, simply because there is science of politics and there is politics of science. Now, science of politics, in this case, we are looking at the extent of scientificity of the virus, how it impacts on policy making. Politics of science in this case is how you now react to the problematic, the virus as a problematic. In this case, whether it is science of politics, politics of science, I will address it from the perspective of political science as a discipline, and to theorize that, politically speaking, how can we evade the hypothesis that COVID-19, Delta, Omicron is not a new design, a new instrument of possibly recolonizing the whole world in a different form. Why? This is simply because, politically speaking, initially, go to the late 60s, early 70s, I asked myself, the Japanese came with their Toyota vehicle. They had Toyota Corolla, Toyota Corona, Toyota Crown, everything CCC, and so on and so forth. Now, when I look at the countries that have been deeply involved in all these coronavirus, I now begin to see that right from the early 60s, they've been talking about corona in different forms. And even though Dr. Abati himself is not likely, because he has not accepted until now, that there could be conspiratorial theories about this. And I now look at it to say that, look, what is actually happening? When our former commissioner there is saying, well, like Madele will also say that we do not know much about Omicron. I will not agree, even though I'm not a scientist, I'm a layman. I think that we know much. They know quite well that this virus has been mutating in different forms. They admit that there will always be mutations from time to time. But what it will mutate to is what they do not know. Now, if, for instance, coronavirus, COVID-19 is not natural, it's not a natural virus, if it is biological, if it is a, weapons to fight in the future, then you must admit the fact that they knew about the mutations. Those who fabricated the virus know quite well that from time to time they will be having this. So they have names for all the mutations that will come in the future. And that's the perspective I want to look at it. Politics of the virus, and not necessarily scientifically looking.
Well, Prof, I mean, WHO came up with those Greek alphabets to prevent a situation whereby countries will be mischaracterized, demonized, discriminated against. That was the basis of it. Not because WHO knew what the mutations will be. You will recall that the United States was calling it the China virus. And then the WHO said no. And even this latest,
of China
this Omicron
yes.
was already being called the South African virus,
yes.
until the WHO came up with Omicron.
That's the politics
but you know, of course, that I don't agree with these conspiracy theories.
Yes.
I think that we should follow the science. But in any case, let's move on.
Conspiracy theorist on COVID. He has been and he will always be.
Anyway, I don't want to put Prof on the spot for a second time on this program today. Let's move on. Let's take another subject. And Yemi Adamolekun, please be on standby. I'll start with you. Weeks after a panel set up by the Lagos State government to investigate cases of abuses leveled against the disbanded Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, submitted its report. The government on Tuesday released a white paper on the report. In the white paper, the state government said it accepts 11 of the 32 recommendations of the panel, rejects 1, agrees on 6 with modifications, and forwarded 14 to the federal government for further action. He specifically disagreed with the panel that anyone was killed at the Lekki toll gate during the October 2020 ENDSARS protests, insisting that the report was full of discrepancies, irregularities, and inaccuracies with claims of deaths of victims. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu made the announcement in a statewide broadcast, also invited some aggrieved protesters to a walk for peace in a bid to kickstart what he described as the healing process. But some of those named have openly rejected the invitation. Yemi Adamalekun, as you know, some have also accepted the invitation for a peace walk. Students of Lagos State University, or JO, Segun Awosanya, popularly known as Sega Link, and others, they have said that the governor of Lagos State would not walk alone, like Liverpool, and that they would join him in the peace walk. But those who object to that peace walk are saying, well, there must be justice before anything else, and they do not think that the white paper has done justice to the recommendations of the panel. And then, of course, arguments by the likes of Ebunlu Adegboruwa, who was a member of the panel, saying that the Lagos State government does not even have the rights to vary or choose whatever recommendations it accepts. Yemi, what do you think?
There's a lot to say, but I'll just pick on 2 or 3 points. Number one, I think it is instructive that Lagos State, and it's really very unfortunate, I would say very clearly, the type of advice that Babajide Sanwo-Olu is not only being given, but ultimately listening to. Because regardless of what you are told or what is suggested to you, what is proposed to you, the buck stops at your table if you decide to respond to it or not. Let's recall that last year, Babajide Sanwo-Olu did acknowledge that people were killed. At some point, I think it was on Arise, where he said from a blunt, I guess, trauma or hit, blunt from the head was what he said. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and after October 20, spent a few days visiting victims in hospitals. The Lagos State government did say they were going to pick up tabs of people who were injured, who were in various hospitals across Lagos State. From what I recall, that process did not happen. I think it happened for a little bit, but there were victims, I said, that their bills were not paid. And I know categorically that there are people, citizens, private citizens like myself, who paid bills at that time and still continue to pay bills till today. Because if you're amputated and you're unable to earn an income, you need to eat, you need to live. And I know private Lagosians who are supporting victims of the Lekki Tollgate massacre. And I say that categorically. Anybody can challenge me on that. I say that categorically. So I think it's very unfortunate from Governor Sanwo-Olu, the Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo. There were tweets talking about what happened at the Lekki Tollgate. The Lekki Concession Company, LCCI, did talk about shootings and killings, if I'm not mistaken, in their press statement that they released a day or two after the tollgate incident. So you have that. Then you have a panel that was legally set up by the Lagos State government. And I will commend Governor Sanwo-Olu on that, because every member of the panel did say that he did not interfere. He didn't try to sway what their outcome would be or influence what their outcome would be. I'm aware that leading up to the 1-year anniversary, that he was under a lot of pressure that at least provide something from the reports, something 1 year later. And he said no, that he wanted to wait until the panel was done and they presented the reports to him. I think it's instructive to note that till today, even though again, Governor Sanwo-Olu said he would make the report public, till today, unless I'm mistaken. Actually, no, let me take that back. I saw a notice yesterday that the report has now been made public yesterday. The commentary that was happening before then was on a version that was leaked, which all the panel members said, except for typos and a few typos and errors in that nature, the material essence of the report stayed true to what they worked on. So the report is now made public. The white paper, as far as I know, news outlets got copies of it. They were to pick them up at Alausa at some odd hour of the night. As far as I know, it has not been made public. So people have read bits and pieces of it. So Lagos did have an opportunity to really present itself like, we set up a panel, the panel gave a report, this is the white paper, and this is what we're going to do. As of now, Ekiti, Ondo, and Bayelsa are the only 3 states that have made their report public, was submitted and made public. And the other point I'd like to note, to also show a bit of the discrepancy in Governor Sanwo-Olu's understanding of the times, I would say, is for the white paper to say that Lagos State does not have the power to make a date a public holiday. That's a blatant lie. Lagos and the Southwest states were the only states in the country observing June 12th as a public holiday for many years, until it became a public holiday 2 or 3 years ago. And there's a Lagos state law that allows them to do that. I don't know the law off the top of my head, but I'll use June 12th because I know June 12th was a public holiday in Lagos State and some other Southwest states. So for Governor Sanwo-Olu to say he can't do that is, I'm sorry, a lie. So and then the last point I would make is this walk for peace. Again, a very tone-deaf response to a state that is heavily traumatized, to a population that's heavily traumatized, from people who watched members of the Nigerian army open fire on citizens sitting down, waving the national flag. For you to do a volte-face and now suddenly say, you know what, let's heal by walking for peace. No, you don't heal by walking for peace. You heal by sending people to jail. You heal by holding people accountable, including yourself. And I'm speaking directly to Governor Sanwo-Olu. You heal by holding people accountable for atrocities committed. Nigerian citizens were killed in cold blood in Lagos State. Evidence is there. The victims are there. The family members of the victims are there. Mothers apparently laid siege on Alausa a few days ago to protest this. So the way to heal, Governor Sanwo-Olu, is to look at the report, meet with the family members of those who say that I lost a family member, I was maimed, amputee, gunshot wound. There's a gentleman who shows his gunshot scared, a bullet went through, came out. And then say, given the findings of this panel and what Lagosians are saying around how do we move forward, that's how we heal. It's not by a jamboree of a peace walk. LASU is a Lagos, let's not forget, LASU is Lagos State University, so not surprising that some students will choose to participate. And I also know that some students are saying they will not participate in that. So you cannot have peace. And we've seen this across the country. From southern Kaduna to Niger to Borno, you cannot have peace where there is no justice. Where people who commit atrocities are not held accountable, it does not work, it cannot work. And Governor Sanwo-Olu must be told that over and over and over until he understands it.
I get your point, Yemi. Well, Modele, do you share Yemi's concerns?
Well, the allegations made are very weighty ones that can earn perpetrators long jail term and eternal opprobrium. So so without incontrovertible evidence, it's always going to be my word against yours. So I'm not surprised that government is adopting the position of that's my story and I'm sticking with it. That said, I'm very happy that young people are developing a social conscience. They're not just rolling over and dying in a manner of speaking. So it's very heartwarming for me that our young people are getting, are engaging with government. So it's important for our leaders to know that the young people must be heard. Their opinions must be respected. They may not always have the same ideals as us, but they are the future and they will take the world in their direction, so they must be encouraged to stay engaged. They, on the other hand, must learn to dialogue. Dialogue is a two-way thing. It can't always be my way or the highway. It can't always be my way or the highway. I'll rest my case on that.
Well, Chike Ogel, the white paper on the ENDSARS panel report.
Well, that white paper, you have to look at it from 2 points of view, if you ask me. One is from the government that set up the panel, and even from the admission of members of the panel, was allowed to do their jobs. And of course, from the panel itself, which I continue to insist were populated by very distinguished people, the chairman of the panel, a distinguished jurist herself, and has had a distinguished career as a lawyer before she became a judge. And but if you look at the law, and that is what even a few lawyers are saying, maybe there were some issues the panel did not trash out completely to be able to stand before the law. Because, we keep saying the law is an us, and those of us that are lawyers will always tell you that sometimes law doesn't give you justice. That's the first thing we should know about law. And you see, by the time the federal government ambushed the process, when the Minister of Information jumped into the matter, even before the white paper and all of that, as they say, the witch cries in the night and the child dies in the morning, it had already muddied the waters. And even if Lagos State government, were ready to be above board and do everything correctly, then they realized that, there are all kinds of loopholes we can, use to just get out of this whole thing. Because you see, like Yemi said, it will be a hard sell to really say you want to have peace without really talking about justice and addressing those issues that we all saw. We saw them in real life, in real time, the shootings and everything. Now, there were situations where they said soldiers were packing dead bodies, people came and gave all those evidence. Even in that panel, you can't throw all that kind of evidence away just because there are other aspects of it, that were not really all there. So all in all, it's a little bit of a downer, if you ask me. And that is why, the governor was ready to move ahead and heal the wounds and invited those he felt were the leaders of that whole struggle at that time, though erroneously everybody believed that there were no leaders. But if there were no leaders, why do you think the governor called out those specific names he called? He didn't ask for any LASU students to come and join him. So whether LASU students are volunteering to go with him or him, that's not the point. He called out some names, which means that these are the people he reckons are important to what he's trying to achieve. And it's, very fortunately, those names have come out to say, no, we are not going to be part of this until you really give us the justice we are looking for. So it's still, a catch-22 situation. And I think some more work needs to be done on it for us to be able to have some closure on this matter. It's still open. That's what I would say.
Well, I said that, Chike, the students of Lagos State University are also stakeholders in the matter. They're also young people, and they're also stakeholders. And they've said...
But they were not called. Don't forget they were not called.
They had an interaction with the governor.
If they were that important, they would have been mentioned in the speech of the government.
No, I guess they are also important, as we all are, in the matter. Professor Akinterenwa, quickly.
I think Yemi couldn't have been more correct with her submission, especially on the point that you do not seek peace by simply mobilizing people to engage in a peace work. I so much agree with her in total. And I ask the question, what really is a white paper? What does it really mean? I think the white paper, as written, as submitted to the public by the Lagos State governor, is nothing more than a white paper in the sense of a non-paper, but with a difference. What does that mean? Ordinarily speaking, white paper, especially in the political context, is a document that delineates, articulates your policy direction. You see, it is about proposals, what you want to do. But when you look at the context of a white paper following a panel of inquiry, now the meaning is completely different. The government is simply trying to tell the public, I am interested in this type of recommendation, I am agreeing with this, and so on and so forth, which under normal circumstance shouldn't be. That is the first starting point. You see, I thank God that I had the opportunity to listen to the Nigerian army, which said in the beginning they were not involved, they didn't shoot, they didn't do that. I also listened to the same military, which complained bitterly about Sanwo-Olu denying having invited, the army into the matter. I also thank God that I had the opportunity to also listen to the many, many contradictions. Now, these are elements of, evidence. Now, if, for instance, now you now come with a report under the pretext that there are typographical errors, there are minor errors, and so on and so forth, the report cannot tell me that people were not killed. Sanwo-Olu told us, forget whether it is only 1 person, 3 persons, or 9 persons. People died. Now, let us at least follow God a bit. Let us worship God with common sense. If, for instance, you are denying what actually occurred, for God's sake, and you are expecting justice, and you want God to bless Africa, to bless Nigeria, to forgive Nigeria, it is not possible. It's a white paper that is a non-paper. In the international text, I'm happy Dr. Abati is here. A non-paper in a multilateral setting meeting, you complain, you make your points ready, what you want, but you never put your name there. It's never there. That's why they call it non-paper. But it has strategic importance. So what Sanwo-Olu is trying to do now is to give the meaning of a non-paper to a white paper to confuse the public without admitting that he has done this.
Okay, thank you. Well, I hope that the relevant stakeholders are listening. Let's take our final topic of the day, given the constraints of time that we're confronted with. The Lagos State government has shut down Dowen College in Lekki area of the state, following the death of a 12-year-old who was reportedly bullied to death. Sylvester Oromoni was allegedly beaten up by some senior students of the school for his refusal to join their gang. He sustained various degrees of injuries, which was believed to have led to his death. Although the school authorities initially denied the report of bullying, the parents of the deceased child insist that Sylvester has shown signs of depression shortly before his death. Meanwhile, the police in Lagos said they have opened investigation into the matter. Earlier today, Arise News spoke with the father of Sylvester Oromoni over circumstances surrounding the death of the youngster. This is what he told us.
He said he did not play any football with any friends, that he did not even fall. He was in his room in the evening, although he did not give us the time, in the evening, with his friend. He was lying on his bed. He was lying on his bed. His friends were sitting on their bed. They were gisting. Then these boys walked in. 5 of them walked into the room. And when they walked in, he said they were his senior students. Then he has not mentioned their name. When they walked in, one of them went back and put up the light. He did not mention who put up the light. So, but one of them went back and put up the light. But they were holding belt. They started beating him. They flogged him. He fell off from his bed and they started mashing him. All of them. They started mashing him. They bullied him. In fact, he said that all these pains he was having all over his body, his head everywhere, was as a result of the beating. That he did not play any ball. Then he said, well, after beating, they now forced him to drink something. I said, okay, did you know the type of thing they give to you to drink? He said it was dark. But when he was making this statement, he would talk and would make, then he would continue again. He said they gave him something to drink, but he could not describe what they gave to him to drink.
The lights were off.
The light were off. We did not see the thing they give to him to drink. That they forced something inside his mouth, and the drank something they give to him. Please, thorough investigation is what I want. When the school is saying that it was as a result of football or he fell on the football pitch, I don't think that statement is true. Please, I want thorough investigation before he died. Those were the messages I sent to them. So when the woman told me, why did I send those pictures to the public? I told you, madam, you issued a statement.
Well, very sad story there. Many parents are disturbed. Yemi Adamalekun, we have just about 6 minutes to go. Very quickly, what are your thoughts on this very sad, very tragic story?
It is very unfortunate. And for me, I kind of parallel it also with the challenges we have with medical negligence in the Nigerian system, where patients die in hospitals and people don't see anything, and then it continues. For the schools, I'll read a quote from a gentleman called Taiwo Akinlami, who's done quite a bit of work on children and schools. He says, one reoccurring and disturbing decimal is that all the deaths were absolutely preventable because they are all traceable to negligence of the school's management, who neglected the details of putting in place the necessary machinery to prevent, and the ignorance of parents who either did not know the questions to ask or did not ask the questions. And I think it's really a challenge, especially that this incidents, this one at Dowen College, there's the Premier Academy case in Abuja of the young lady that might have been sexually violated and died. There's the Chrisland story of the young lady as well that was raped, that Chrisland defended until a court, I think the appeals court, was found in favor of the child's family. So there is a precedence of schools defending, and understandably so to a degree, defending their schools. But there needs to be a point where defending your business cannot be superior to getting justice or ensuring that there's a problem. Not even justice is sometimes too late because the young boys or the children are dead. But ensuring that you put in place a mechanism where this does not happen in the first place. And when there's a first whiff of it, your response is not defense. Your response is, what is the problem? How do we solve this problem? And I hope Sylvester's death in the things that would come up in the days and weeks ahead helps us, and Premier Academy in Abuja, which hasn't had as much limelight as this case, also is able to let us focus on the schools, the requirements, and also the state bodies who should be regulating schools to ensure that the processes are in place to secure lives.
Well, Chike, very quickly, we have just about 3 minutes to go.
Yeah, extremely heart-wrenching story. Extremely. I'm even short for words because whatever is done, that youngster's life cannot be replaced. And nobody knows what he will have been. As a parent myself, like I said, it is something that is very, very painful to me, extremely so. I'm just short for words, but I think this is just the failure of so many levels, college system, parenting, everything that we had first class of in my time, which was just how many years ago? All our values, all our ethos has collapsed. That's why a school can be defending this kind of atrocious behavior by some vile creatures in that school that you call children. Those are not children. I'm sorry to say, those are not children. And they must be tried in a court of law according to every tenet of Nigerian justice, and will be sentenced accordingly. And a few of us, as we still have breath in our lives, will make sure that happens. Not just because that child is from Delta State, which makes it even additionally painful, because it's my state. I know the governor of the state has even taken it upon himself to get to the bottom of this. But, it just tells where we are as a country. I'm sorry.
Modele Sharafa Yusuf.
It's very heartbreaking what's happened. Unfortunately, one of the things that people are complaining about is the boarding school system. Boarding schools have been around for forever. They expose children to all sorts of good things. They develop confidence, they develop independence. They're often more disciplined because of the regimented lifestyle. But it's always been the case that seniors sometimes seek to intimidate and coerce juniors who are perceived as vulnerable, and almost everyone who has attended a boarding school has a story to tell. However, what we have now is hard to comprehend. It's hard to comprehend. Alleged cultism in a secondary school. In a secondary school. Incredible stuff. These are children who are under 16, 17. I'm just completely discipline or lack of it is at the bottom of this, and I think the schools need to do more. Society needs to do more as a whole.
Well, Professor Akinterenwa, the last word on this.
First point: the school authorities should be held directly responsible, in spite of the investigation still going on. Why? The alleged pupils had already been warned. When they came back from holiday, the victim was removed to another hostel. So the school knows already. So why would they be irresponsible to the extent of not ensuring that there is no recurrence? It's as simple as that, and I hope that there will be a white paper that will not be controversial the way it is with ENDSARS protest. It's so saddening, and I think the school should be held responsible. There's no reason why they should not be held responsible.
Well, thank you. Very sad, really sad. You've been watching Thisdaylive, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. For my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again next week.